Much, Chair, and it's a pleasure, Dr. Huck, to serve under your chairmanship. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity of this debate in one of my favourite subjects, which is the planning system, and how investment can be forthcoming for development to support my other favourite subject, which is infrastructure. So for the rest of us, that's road, rail, transport in particular. And the reason why this debate is so important for my constituents, and actually I'd say for the county of Essex, is because in the Witham constituency and throughout Essex, we have seen the most remarkable change in development. And I'm particularly pleased, actually, and delighted that my honourable friend, the member for Redditch, is here to respond on behalf of the government, because if I may say so, despite having been in the Home Office, planning is certainly one of the most difficult and contentious issues. And I know that she is a deeply constructive minister to work with, and I've had the privilege of working with her previously. But this issue matters to my constituents, and as someone that has 3 planning authorities, plus a county council, town councils, and many parish councils, one could almost describe this issue as somewhat semi-controversial locally as well. And that is because I cover Braintree District, Morden District, Colchester City, as it now is, and, of course, Essex County Council also have a say on planning issues. And we are one of the fastest-growing areas in Essex. I border Chelmsford City, as well as Colchester City as well. And with that, our county council are the penholders on the waste and minerals aspects. Our local parish councils have neighbourhood plans in various stages of preparations. That's on top of the 5-year land supply, the local plans, the other pillars that the Minister will be familiar with, all the planning policies, spatial strategies, MPPF, changes to national planning laws, multiple local plans. And in Essex, of course, and in my constituency, garden communities was also once on the table too. But look, we have been in constant loggerheads, our councils have, with developers over 5-year land supply positions. Numerous planning applications go to the planning inspectorate. Decisions sometimes are felt to ride roughshod over local views. The Minister is familiar with all of this. We've also had the Secretary of State call in and recover planning applications appeals using powers under Section 77 of the Town and County Planning Act. We've also seen developments approved against local wishes, outside of settlement boundaries, and sites, some sites have been deemed inappropriate in local plans. So the Minister, and if I may, her dear officials in the department, I've got no doubt have got filing cabinets just on my constituency and the various correspondence that I've set in. But, you know, we are constructive. My constituents have welcomed development. I don't think my constituents should ever be described as NIMBYs because, quite frankly, we've been building thousands of homes over the last decade, and we want to see a new wave of homes because we believe in home ownership and we believe in creating the pathway to home ownership as well. So, just if I may just give some examples, Tiptree Village, although if you went to Tiptree Village, you would not deem it as a village, it has grown and continues to expand. Stanway has multiple sites being developed. Stanway was once a village. It is now almost a suburb of Colchester City. Witham Town itself has expanded. Villages such as Hatfield Peveril are now being encircled by developments. And in one particular part of my constituency in Morden, I'm going there on Friday actually, 1,000 homes are being built in Heybridge, and that's a site that straddles 2 constituencies, so the Witham constituency and Morden constituency. So with all this development taking place, that's thousands upon thousands of new homes. But the challenge that we have is not just the house building, it's what comes with the house building. And the Minister and I, every single honourable and right honourable colleague will be familiar with this. So where is the roads? Where are the GP surgeries? Where are the schools? To be fair, we are getting schools through some of these developments. But my councils and my villages are bombarded with planning applications on green spaces now outside settlement boundaries. And it's a fact, isn't it? Developers come highly resourced. They're pretty tooled up, as the department and the Minister will be too familiar with. They also have the chance to pay highly paid barristers as well, as we know. We've seen far too many speculative applications, even ones that have been rejected in the past are now back on the table. And of course, This has an impact on democracy because it angers and frustrates local residents who feel their views are being ridden roughshod over, that they can't have a say. They wonder why their councils and councillors and perhaps even their MP seem so denuded sometimes. But of course, the government is not, well, the government is definitely aware of these issues, and these are not new issues for the government. So I'd really like to hear from the Minister if she can give assurances that councillors who found themselves where, you know, on 5-year land supply issues, where there might be a small margin, where they've fallen behind, or a marginal on their land supply, actually, due to the current economic climate, when we think about construction inflation, delays in the supply chain, that affects councils adversely. So we need to give them support, basically, because it cannot be right that councils are penalised in this way, and it does risk unwelcome development in communities. And my local authorities are constantly raising these issues. And I think alongside this, it'd be wonderful to hear if the Minister could give some details on what is being done to encourage developers to build out where they have consents already to build housing supply. And with that, I think even perhaps provide some clarity on local plans from the 30th of June 2025, because obviously we are back in that famous cycle now, 5-year land supply, and councils are struggling now to look at the timeframe, the windows, and what they need to be doing as well. I will give way.
Who can blame people for wanting to come and live in Essex? And that's why it's such an attractive place for developers to come. But could you just reflect on an issue that we have in my constituency in Thurrock, where we have identified sites where we'd like to build thousands of new homes, but they are subject to a permanent block by national highways because of the impact on the M25 and Dartford crossing, which she, of course, is very familiar with. And, you know, it's all very well having the road infrastructure there, but when it gets actually just taken away for national purposes, we're not able to benefit from it. And we can see the position, like she can, that because of the 5-year land supply, we are going to have new homes built on sites we don't want, when we've already highlighted perfectly adequate sites that we do.
Well, my right honourable friend, I think, is absolutely correct on this. Some of this actually speaks of planning policy around neighbourhood plans and respecting the work that has been undertaken. And I do think, and if I may, I know my honourable friend's constituency relatively well. I'm too familiar with the Dartford crossing. Thank goodness we got rid of the tolls and everything else through a lot of joint effort, actually. But this is a major issue because local plans need to be fit for purpose, work for local communities, and national schemes should not be overriding them. And I say the same, and I'm going to come on actually to infrastructure investment. I hope to see the Transport Secretary at some stage, because in Essex we have a whole raft of roads that have been underdeveloped. A12, A13 is in pretty good condition, but the A120, again, they are now being stymied because of national issues, while at the same time planning and development depends upon those routes and those roads being getting the investment that they need. And as the Minister will know, local plans, neighbourhood plans are important to the planning process, but actually they set the blueprint for national infrastructure schemes. So in the East, we have Transport East. We have County Council working with, basically, the government and other authorities on planning for population growth, infrastructure growth, economic growth, all these really important and, quite frankly, exciting elements that we want to see really develop. And a truly plan-led approach to planning and development is win-win. People move in, people have homes, jobs, etc., and actually Essex is, in my view, one of the best counties in the country. But we're important for economic growth because we are actually a net contributor to the Treasury. And as a county, what we contribute, we never actually get back, and we do want to see that coming back from central government, whether it's in planning policies that are sustainable or the economic growth and infrastructure investment that comes in place. And County Council, I have to say, in Essex, really do give a great deal of support around the development and the planning work around roads and highways. But there's not enough funding. And yet at the same time, whether it's SIL or 106 or new homes bonus, how are we going to make this work for local communities? So parts of Witham, beautiful villages such as Hatfield, Peveril, great villages such as Tiptree and Stanway, they are traffic bottlenecks because, quite frankly, the roads are untouched. They've been untouched literally for probably now about 40 years, maybe longer than that. And the infrastructure contributions are simply not enough. housing growth in Hatfield-Peveril, and further afield in the Malden constituency, for example, reinforces the need for a bypass, reinforces the need that we can't have A12 traffic going through rural villages. I mean, that is just crazy. But no single housing scheme produced thus far has produced anything close enough to the funding needed to pay for such schemes. And I do know that the government is reviewing Section 106 and the SIL process. And I think, if I may, I'd welcome an update from the Minister on this, because we need to unlock all of this to get the investment in our roads. And, you know, in my case, it's for the A12 and A120, which for my constituency in Witham are the two major trunk roads with upgrade plans. However, they've already faced delays. So the A12 scheme has now faced delays, and it's now progressing through a DCO process. Very controversial, I should say. Villages in particular are being impacted. The A120 dualling scheme has been delayed from RIS, the RIS process, now RIS process 3, so it's gone from 2 to 3. And this scheme is needed. The A120 was once one of the most dangerous roads in the country. So I think it'd be useful to hear from the Minister how the planning system and her work is integrating with transport, and linked to that, of course, with healthcare and education, because these are key aspects. And the all-party parliamentary group for the East of England in the Levelling Up report has highlighted, I'm afraid, some of the real deficiencies across the East of England, including Essex, on how funding formulas used to calculate contributions for key services such as health in particular and education are simply inadequate. Patient GP ratios are one of the highest in the country in Essex, and we are struggling. And yet we have more people living in our constituencies, but no access to facilities. So I'd welcome any update from the Minister. If I may, Dr. Huck, I do want to touch on a very particular point on planning, which is to raise the issue of Class Q regulations for urgent developments on Crown land. Urgent development, that whole phrase, how that is defined by central government, it would be very useful to know this. And the reason why I raise this issue is because the Home Office are using this measure to develop a large asylum accommodation centre in Wethersfield. That is in the Braintree district, which I am the other member of, a neighbour in the Braintree constituency. However, the wider impacts for Essex are absolutely enormous. They really are. I should just add for the record, my part of Essex actually houses already the largest number of refugees in the whole of the county, which on that basis, I'd just like to pay tribute to everyone that does amazing work locally. And it is the local councils that are doing incredible work, but I'm afraid they're not getting the support that they need from the Home Office. I appreciate that's another department, but specifically on Class Q regulations, I would like to know, and my colleague, my honourable friend, is familiar with obviously the Home Office, but what this actually means when it comes to taking over a site, Wethersfield, and how that approach may differ from previous sites that the government has looked at or worked on in the past. Linton-on-News in Yorkshire was one of them. And in particular, how there can be such an exceptional planning process which bypasses all concerns and considerations of local councils, local authorities and local residents. I should just add that Wethersfield is a village. And moreover, residents are concerned about Clause 103 in the most recent version of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, currently being considered in the House of Lords, on urgent Crown development. And this clause gives the government the powers to determine urgent applications on Crown land, which basically bypasses local decision-making. I'm not sure if local authorities across the country understand what this power will do, because it will bypass local democracy. I think that's a major issue and a big problem. And perhaps I would be grateful if the Minister could give an insight today. If she can't, then she's very welcome to write to me on the specifics of this. I wouldn't expect her to have the full details today, because some of this will cross over into our former departments of the Home Office on the use of Class Q and Clause 103. And in particular, I'm looking for assurances on how local communities can hold the government to account on this, because currently their voices are being silenced. They're simply not getting a say or having a say. And at the end of the day, democracy reigns in our country, and long may it reign. But I think within our local communities, you know, particularly where we have councillors elected, they need to be able to engage local residents in a very strong way. There are many other planning and development issues that I could raise. I think I've given the Minister an insight into the Witham constituency, if nothing else. And I really do look forward to not just hearing from the Minister, but actually working with her. Just to finally conclude, the Minister is one of the most capable ministers, I think, in government, and I have had the privilege of working with her. But with that, I think she holds a very important role in government in terms of working across other government departments on these areas of planning and doing something and delivering something that sometimes I think government doesn't do enough of, which is integrating national policies across the board so actually we can demonstrate that government does work on behalf of the British people and delivers for the British public. Thank you, Dr. Huck.